Gentlemen, so good to see you again. Are we ready?
We are ready.
Let's get into it.
Urban Christian Veterans provides a safe place for Christian veterans of color to discuss the challenges you face in your daily lives. Being a person of color has its challenges. Being a Christian has its challenges. Being a veteran has its challenges. All of those factors being combined makes for a unique and sometimes difficult life experience that is seldom talked about in public forums. Thank you for tuning in to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast. Here's your host, D. Allen Rose.
Thank you, Aaron, for that wonderful introduction. This is D. Allen Rose, and you are listening to the Urban Christian Veterans Podcast. So, the question for today is unity in our community possible? Is unity in our community even possible? What do you say to that?
Wow. I'm a hopeless optimist,
Okay.
and even I'm skeptical. We don't have a leader that has been chosen by us anymore. Back in the 60s and 70s, there were distinctive Martin and Malcolm. There were distinctive leaders that we had for our community. Now, every time we get one, you know what happens to them. So what I think the powers that be have seen that if they're going to need a leader, let's give them one. And they give us people like these musicians and artists. Like, we didn't pick them. How are they? Now all of a sudden, now he's speaking. You can't. We didn't pick you. You know. So I think that's what my observation has been, that they've been pushing people up to say, oh, this is your spokesperson. Oh, they speak because he's famous or she's famous.
Mm-hmm.
They think we're supposed to just follow them. That archaic thinking that we'll give them someone before we allow another Malcolm to rise or another Martin Luther to rise from amongst them. And then they'll do a token thing. I think president was the token. They figure, oh, we're gonna give him a token because he really didn't do what we thought he should have done, but he couldn't. Mm. You know, he couldn't. He didn't have the tools to be successful. He was just a token. Then the powers that be, because all of them in Congress are 80, they thinking like, oh, let's just give him somebody. We'll calm him down. We just give him somebody, you know. And he wasn't a Malcolm, and he wasn't a Martin Luther. Obama. Mm-hmm. He was Obama. Yeah. And as mediocre as that it wasn't a Malcolm or the Martin. And I'm fearful that if someone else doesn't step up and to become that level to galvanize us, like it's going to take a tragedy to do it.
Mm.
Yeah. We always come together after a great tragedy, but we only come together for a little while. You know, we ain't marching across no Edmund Pettus Bridge, bad feet and all that. We ain't going a whole 30 days bus boycott. You know, we're not doing that. We don't have anybody to galvanize us. And I think that is by design. So as optimistic as I am, I really don't think so. I don't. I think we can come together. We come together in small microcosms around places, but a collective. Some cities might come together. Mm-hmm. You know, some towns. But we haven't seen that type of come togetherness, camaraderie in the 60s. We haven't seen that since. And they're not going to allow us a leader to rise to galvanize us like that. I don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to say, like I said, I'm a hopeless optimistic, but I don't think we'll collectively. I don't think so. Not in our lifetime.
Yeah, a couple of things. from what you were saying about Obama before, as the saying goes, before you're elected, you're selected. Donna Brazile, I heard her on a morning show talking that they pegged, this is from a Democratic strategist, they pegged him before that 2004 speech he gave at the Democratic National Convention for the presidency. That's coming from her mouth. I heard her say that before that. So 2004, so it had to be 2003, sometime prior to that, that he was pegged to go for the presidency. So before you are elected, you're selected. I think also on that same vein, there is a huge power structure working behind the scenes that's pushing this machine forward as of the United States that are really pulling the strings. A few years back, the Supreme Court ruled that companies can be a person to where they can give huge amounts of money to these politicians. And I think that's something that needs to be reverted. As far as coming together, even during that time period, and I've studied, there seemed to be a bridge put between Malcolm and Martin Luther King. But from information I've read or have heard, they met behind closed doors, out of the camera's eye. Now, granted, there were some things they were different on, but as long as it was for the uplifting of the people, there was agreement between them, and I would say they were friends. But they just knew that they had to be separate and not seen together because of eventually what ended up happening to both. Okay, the gentleman on that video, I understood where he was coming from, because when you look at the continent of Africa before colonization came, you have all these different ethnic groups. In just what would be countries now with the borders, there were different ethnic groups that were there that were doing their own thing. And when colonization came, if you were caught where those border lines were done, you brought these people together who had really nothing to do with each other. And that's unfortunate. I from what the gentleman was saying, the professor was saying, we can't come together, but we need to come together, because when the world looks at us, they don't see a Black American, they don't see a Black African, they don't see Zulu or whatever other tribe, they just see Black. So the world puts us into this huge bowl as one. Now, if we were to come together, that would be powerful. That would be powerful. I always thought about this. I had a conversation with someone, and you always hear, well, why don't you go back to Africa? Why don't you go back to Africa? And you always hear about reparations. Well, I said, okay, you want us to go back to Africa? But there's a way you could do it, and this is just my opinion. There's a way you could do it, and just let's do this. All the money we've paid into Social Security, all the money we've paid into our 401k, because we work for that, we paid into it, all the money we've put into our IRAs, all the inventions that came from us, and the money is generated, we take those, and by the way, all the gold that came off the continent, all the diamonds, all the artifacts, return them, and let us go. I would go, but that's the caveat. That way, we're covered with reparations. Africa, because of how we grew up, it shows Africa not the true size on the typical map. Africa is huge. When you read and you study, it's huge. So if we were to go back, if we were to leave here, I heard, I think it was Jacques Chirac, the French leader, said if Africa wasn't paying us the $500 billion a year that we pull out of the continent from past colonization, they would be a third world country. And that's a powerful statement. So Can we come together? Yeah. As to quote Kevin Garnett, anything's possible. Yes, we can come together. Will we? I don't know, because even going back to the 60s, there was factions of splits even prior to that. I think the best we've come together was probably after Civil War, talking about Reconstruction, where a lot of blacks were in the Congress for a stint before a lot of other things started happening to oust us out of those power seats. So can we do it? Oh yeah, it's possible. Will we do it? Probably not. There has to be something really drastic to happen to the black populace. And when I say black, I'm not talking just Americans. I'm talking Africans. I'm
Tragic.
talking
It has to be a
across. I'm
tragedy,
talking
a
across the world.
9/11 type
Yeah, it has to be
tragic event.
something huge to say, okay, we're done for that to happen. And I just don't see it happening right now.
And they don't want us
Based on
to
history.
separate because, let's face it, all statistics and all the article, everything you've ever read, and because of it wasn't just one Black Wall Street that got destroyed. There were multiple Black Wall Streets across the country,
Wilmington in
but we were
Florida,
segregated, and that's the fear. I believe my own personal opinion, because we are slowly starting to realize our economic power now. With our dollar, look what happened with Target. The CEO had to step down.
I ain't been in Target in about 2 years.
Yep. So because of the boycott we have done, the CEO had to step down. They lost billions of dollars. So we are slowly starting to see what our economic, we spend more. Clearly, they got all these stats in the world that show that. They don't want us to see that and feel it, because if we did, that would change things. Now we can come together.
Yeah, I believe the city of Atlanta, and I'm saying, when I say metropolitan Atlanta, has a larger GDP, I think, than the state of Mississippi and Louisiana. Just Atlanta, metropolitan Atlanta, has more GDP than these two states. And I think I might want to throw Alabama in there.
I wouldn't
think about that. Just the city of Atlanta, metropolitan Atlanta. And you could check me on this. I was listening to something, and I believe that's what they said. It has a greater GDP than those states. So, but I would love to see it. I think today we are learning more of our history. People are reading more. They're more inquisitive about learning about the history. Look at the movie. What was it? Hidden Figures. The ladies who were behind the moonlight. I didn't know about that.
Right.
Coming up in school. You know how many things that I'm learning as a grown adult that I had no idea that what was going on, that we participated in. So many things. Zoom call, MS Teams. A sister who's behind that. The toilet. Everybody should praise his brother for coming up with what is a modern day toilet. The traffic light. Hear the thing about the real McCoy.
Open heart surgery.
Open heart surgery. So many things that none of us knew. Because again, if you were taught in school, who discovered America? And we were taking a test when we were in elementary, middle school, what would you have said?
Christopher Columbus.
You better say that.
All of us would have said that.
Yeah.
All of us would have said that, but we know today that is so far from the truth. Never even stepped on what is North America. Never. And was a heathen. Did atrocious things, but was celebrating them for a national. We all took the day off. But I don't even use his name. I'll say Indigenous Day. I refuse to use his name.
Well,
but
I think I think I find it interesting that in trying to predict whether or not unity is possible, the first thing that was mentioned, Reg, I think you said you went to a leader that is galvanizing. And so I guess then, as a follow-up question, are we saying that unity is not possible without a leader?
I
I,
think I believe we
I
have
think,
to have somebody
yeah.
as a
Okay.
people, kind of like the representatives in Congress. We got to have somebody that we can point to, and or have that person say, "Okay, this is what we're doing," and then everybody, because that's what happened. When they had the Malcolms and the Martins, it was proclaimed, and people did it. They said we meeting over here to march. They met over there to march. Now you got some pseudo. We got some Timu Martins out here now still. Some Sheen Malcolms that they're trying to do something, but there's a reason why they're still here. The slick back preacher hair guy, who done lost all that weight.
Al
And
Sharpton, stop it, man. Get off of
and
Reverend Al. Get off of Reverend Al, man. That's my
I'm trying
man.
I'm not.
That's my man.
I'm trying not to say their names because you told us, we had to be mindful.
I'm just
And
saying,
then,
that's my man.
but it's a reason why he's still here. Yeah, I call him the Timu Martin. And then the honorable guy, he's a Sheen Malcolm. There's a reason why they're still here. As galvanizing as they are to their people, they have followers, but it's a reason why they're still here, because they're not pulling all of us, enough of us to make a difference, to make, they had CIA, FBI, they had all kind of records on Malcolm and Martin. They ain't worried about them. It's almost like the Klan could take the hoods off because they were like, well, we don't need these no more. Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, I think those individuals. I have to give respect to, like, say, for on a serious note, to Sharpton, because he has done a lot. He was pushing he was pushing the envelope on a lot of issues in the Black community. The Honorable Minister Farrakhan, I believe, whether you're Muslim or not, he opened your eyes to a lot of things. He opened your mind to say, okay, he's saying this to make you go and read and research and study. I could say he did that for me. I'm not Muslim, but he said some things. Okay, let me go and read. Let me go and research now. So I think on that aspect, that was a good thing. When the Million Man March happened, unfortunately, I couldn't make it because of where I was stationed or wherever. I just couldn't make it at the time. But to bring together that many brothers for a cause, I think it opened up a lot of eyes.
That it did.
In this country,
I have great respect for both of them gentlemen. I'm just saying that's why they still here.
I think the powers, and I'm doing air quotes, the powers that be, when they saw that, they were like, uh-oh. So it can happen, but I believe with everything going on, it's just like me. I'm sitting back, I'm taking it in, and I'm observing. I'm watching how people conduct themselves. I'm watching what is said. I'm watching how people move, and I'm just taking in information. And I think there's a lot of people who's just, okay, y'all pushing. Okay, I see. You pushing. Okay, I see you. I think if people believe that we are going to go back to a Jim Crow type of era, I believe they're mistaken. No, seriously.
You are absolutely right.
I believe they're mistaken. Yeah, you're pushing these things and laws, and you're trying to do your redlining, you're redrawing districts. But I believe it's going to come to a point where if you put somebody in a corner, they're going to have no other choice but to fight themselves out the corner. And
hence the birth of the civil rights movement.
yeah, I believe that when it gets to that point, then you're going to start to see leaders pop up, and it's not going to be lip service. Whoever that, it can't be lip service. It's going to be defined points of moving forward, and then it's going to be action behind it. This is what needs to be done. Boom, 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 and then action to it.
We definitely have been showing signs of that spark.
Yeah.
You know how when you have a flint and you strike it and you see that spark come off?
Yeah.
They they got it. I'm telling you that Target thing, that was the Million Man March was the first one. I agree with you.
Yeah.
That woke them up. But they sparking the flint.
Yeah. And even before,
like you said, eventually something's gonna catch on fire, and you're gonna have to tell us, what are you doing for us? You're not gonna just be able to sell us no more wolf tickets. What you doing for us specifically? What are you doing for us?
Yeah,
because
it wasn't just. I'm sorry.
Democrats or the Republicans, they ain't been doing nothing for us. Either one of them. This country was not built with us in mind. Not the Constitution. None of that stuff.
Yeah.
The Pledge of Allegiance. None of that stuff was even made with us, even as a thought. We had to fight out, worm our way in there to even make them recognize us. So the Dow Jones up and down doesn't affect us. Unless you're a billionaire, that don't affect us. When it's all the Dow is up, that don't affect us. We've been living on the fringe since they brought us here and thriving. And that's the confusion for them. We've been thriving on the fringe. They give us the scraps, we turn it into delicacies. Now everybody eating chitlins in hog malls. And you know what I'm saying? It's a delicate rib.
Not everybody.
But we know what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
We know what you're saying.
Turn it delicate. Maybe I went too far. Maybe I was too country.
Well, here's a better scenario. Here's a better scenario.
It's going to be a person that's going to say, "Hey, what are you doing for us?"
Yeah.
No more telling us, it's something in the works.
Yeah.
You're gonna get our vote. So that day definitely coming.
Everybody likes our culture, but they don't like the result of being
don't like
in the
us.
culture. They like our dancing. They like our style, the dress. Years ago, when we were coming up, full lips wasn't a thing. Now you're seeing other.
They call it European lips now.
Getting those injections. It was a thing. They talked about the woman's derriere. Now everybody is trying to do squats and thrusts in the gym just to get a derriere. So everyone likes the culture. They love the food. I mean, they could go to the islands, Jamaica, Trinidad, Guyana, wherever, and they love the food, but they don't love the people of the culture. Unfortunately,
at the beach.
All of those things, and that's unfortunate. And I'm not saying everyone, but it's when you look at it on a broad view. On social media, you see over in Japan these kids hip hop dancing and doing it well. But when it was happening initially, late 70s going into the 80s, it was a bad thing. It was a bad thing.
I'm a great observer. I have this gift, and I pinpointed the time back when it changed for us. Our community is when the church was removed from the center of our community. The church used to be the center of our community, and when they took prayer out of school, that was that chink. And then they already was preaching separation of church and state and stuff like that. But when they took prayer out of school, and we started getting all these prosperity creatures, and mega churches, and it bastardized what we had going on, but that was it. When especially for us, because that's where we used to go for. You get your counseling, and everything. But when our churches were taken away now, the mall and your car, and we done got all these other things. We got away from that, in my humble opinion, is when, and then until we get back to that, is the reason why the unity kind of starts to dwindle away. The
I
church
would
used to be
argue,
the center,
yeah, I would
and
argue
we
it might
branched
have
out
been
from there.
before that. It might have been before that because I heard Harry Belafonte on an interview, and he was talking to Martin after a speech, and when it looked like they were going to get integration, and he asked him, he says, and I'm paraphrasing, Martin, why are you melancholy? And he said, I'm afraid that I'm integrating our people into a burning house.
Hmm.
And I believe even then he saw that. And a lot of people like to look at his I Have a Dream speech, but you need to look at his speeches the last 2 years of his
Yeah.
life. And his thinking had almost switched. Not that he didn't believe in people coming together, but I'll say this. My brother-in-law, we were having a discussion. He said integration was one of the worst things that happened with black people. I was like, what are you talking about? Integration. We got, go to colleges and this and that and this. And he came from this one point. When you had to go to a hotel, you had to go where? To a black hotel.
Yep.
If you had to go and get your groceries, you had to go where? To the black grocer. If you needed ice, you had to go to the brother or the sister. If you needed laundry done, you had to go to the sister. So what we talk about, like the Jewish community, where they have their dollars circulating throughout their community, that circulation of our dollars stopped. So a perfect example is Tulsa, Oklahoma, is Wilmington, North Carolina, Ocala, Florida. These communities that were striving and growing, they had a financial awakening and reckoning within their community. And I'm not saying there was nothing good, because we continued our conversation about us coming together. But imagine this. A typical university winning a national championship, I believe the number I hear is between $40 to $60 million that's going into a university. Can you imagine if the top talents went to HBCUs? Can you imagine those teams from the late 70s, the 80s, the 90s of the University of Miami, if they would went to FAMU, if they would have went to Southern, if they would have went to Alabama State? All that money that would have been flowing into these universities, how the landscape would change. That's a big thing. The Jackson State. Look what happened with Dion when he went to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
18 million a weekend flowed into that community. And Boulder, if you ever been, don't need that money. They don't need it. But that's the effect that we could have.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, going back to the beginning, if you said, if we came together, look at the effect that could happen.
Yep. We're starting to recognize our economic power.
Yeah. So
let me just say, I think that I think both made some very good points. I'm going to say the answer to the question is not until. It's not a yes or no, but it's a not until. And I'm a believer. And I believe the answer is there will be no unity in our community until Jesus returns. Period. Period. There's no, because
Yeshua.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, there we go. And until he returns, because you can look to the beginning of time, and I challenge you to look. I mean, you mentioned some times where there might have been some unity here and there, but I challenge you to give me a time in the history of people where there was ever unity, period. I challenge you to do that since the beginning. Tell me, show me where that ever happened. And I'll tell you that the first unity was when Adam and Eve had unity with God. They broke that.
Okay.
Right? They broke that. And there hasn't been unity since in any perspective. In fact, the Bible even teaches in the book of Isaiah, it talks about how it prophesies about Jesus's return, and talks about how nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore when he returns. Well, not obviously this is the Old Testament, so they didn't say Jesus, but you know that's the point. They were prophesying the return, and just the history of the world teaches us that it has never, ever happened anywhere. We had some great communities, yes, where communities were thriving, but I challenge you to show me within that community that it was totally unified, right? I challenge you to show me even the leaders that you guys mentioned, right? Malcolm, Martin, there was great strife within their organizations, even though they were the faces, supposedly, of people, like a group of people. Why is Malcolm no longer here? Because there was no unity in that movement. Now, I will say regarding Reverend Al, right, and Minister Farrakhan, y'all gonna back up off them. Them my boys. You gonna back up off.
That's Reggie.
Listen,
Great
man.
respect. I was just talking about the galvanization of they,
I understand,
why they still here.
But understand that the great work that Reverend Al does with the National Action Network to this day is crucial to the communities where he's active, right? As far as the Nation of Islam, it goes without saying, that for the hundreds of thousands of members that they have given them, purpose and guidelines. And I would argue that that is a very positive thing in whatever community that they're operating in. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all the teachings, but I will say that, his teachings have evolved over the decades that I've been aware of him. And so, but, I just had to toss that in there, man. You ain't going to talk about Reverend Al, man. Come on now. Anyway, no, but as veterans, think about this. Even the military, right? We know that the military has a way of showing you that there is a difference between unity and uniform. Two different things.
Yep.
Right? And Reg, you being a first sergeant, former, I'd wager that there wasn't always unity in your unit. Right? Right? I mean, but you were the leader. And what I'm saying is that I don't think that the only leader that's going to bring unity is Jesus when he returns. There is no man that will bring unity to the community.
I agree.
Yes, the Million Man March was great. However, Jokers was boxing at the Million Man March. Don't get it twisted, right? they was off to the side having issues. You know what I mean?
On that note, gentlemen, I gotta bounce.
Okay, understood. Right. I appreciate it. Back up off, Reverend Al. Back up. No, but even the military, right, teaches us that like a lot of communities have forgotten that people who would think about the people that make up the military. Now, people who would never naturally choose each other. can still become family when they share sacrifice, when they share mission, when they share purpose.
Yeah.
Right. And so these are some of the things that you guys mentioned. The issue, though, is that we all have different value systems. Therefore, I may not be willing to sacrifice over something you may be willing to sacrifice over, because our value systems are different. I may not be with a mission that you're down with, but the military makes you come together on those things. Outside of the military, though, and just in our communities, that really doesn't exist. It would be nice, but I have a tendency to believe, I won't say a tendency, I'm a strong believer in God's word. And right now, that's the only evidence I see that unity will ever return. And that's when he returns, because, as I said, it was broken way back when. And now,
here we are.
And it won't, in my opinion, it won't happen.
That is a great perspective, and I will have to agree with you. Yeah. I would have to agree with you. I believe all those points you just made are very valid, and I think you're right. I think you're right.
Well, yeah, and think about this. We have a tendency to think about, questions like that from the perspective, even when we talk about that video. I wish I knew the brother's name, because I would shout him out. But he is a native of a country in Africa. So from his perspective, the only people he unifies with is those of his tribe. If I'm not mistaken, it was Nigeria, Igbo tribe, right? And from what he was saying, that's who he has unity with. They're kickboxing with other tribes in the same country in Africa.
Yeah.
There's no unity there.
Yeah.
He comes to the United States. A brother then says to him, calls him brother, and he can't relate. What, brother? We're not in the same tribe. We have nothing in common. Now, what you're doing over here is admirable. How he mentioned Pan-Africanism being a joke.
Yes.
Because, even when you mentioned a minute ago, yeah, let's take all this stuff and we'll leave. We'll take all of our contributions and we'll go back. Well, where would you go, brother, when you get over there? Like which?
Because you don't have a tie to that area. Yeah. So it's, and the reason why I said that is because, yeah, you might be from a particular tribe. You come from an area, I come from an area, but the world looks at us as black. Whether you're from Africa, whether you're from Asia, whether you're from America, they all they're seeing is this.
Mm-hmm.
They're not looking at your specific country or your tribe or your culture. They're just seeing black. That's all they're seeing. The world. And that's unfortunate.
It is.
But
it is.
But that was a great perspective. I like that perspective. You are 100% correct. You are 100% correct, D Rose. Until Christ comes back, yeah, that unity will not be there. And I just see it getting more and more pulled apart. I think there was something that happened this past week in the New York Giants organization where Jackson Dart, the quarterback, and their running back had differences as far as who they support. Apparently, this Jackson Dart, he supports Trump. And I'm going to miss that I don't remember the brother's name.
Mm-hmm.
But he stood on his belief system and what he believed. And Yeah. So,
Well, and we talk about the what the word says about these things.
yes.
And it says even like before he returns, um, about the conflict that will be taking place, even in the New Testament.
Yeah. Let me say
And
that brother's name, Abdul Carter.
Abdul
That's a,
Carter. Okay,
yeah, Abdul
I remember
Carter.
the story. I remember
Yeah.
the story.
Yeah.
Um, but as I was saying, the book of Matthew talks about how you know you will hear about wars, rumors of wars. Um, Nations will rise against nation, kingdoms against kingdoms. All these things are going to be happening right before he comes back. And while this is not about, um, you know, a topic of end of days or anything like that, the point is that the Bible is a guide, and when it comes to unity, we can hope for it, and I think it's worth working towards. It's just that there are too many things that divide us that to overcome. And the best we can do is unify under God, meaning, Reggie talked about how his observation was that things just went south when they took prayer out of school. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that happened in the 70s, because I remember being in like elementary school and something happened and something changed. If I'm not mistaken, and you made a good point. Perhaps it happened before then.
Yeah.
Yes, it happened way, way before then, thousands of years before then. And I think that if we were to refer to our community as just the Black community, just if we just kept it right there for a second, the Black community, lost sight of its God, a long time ago. And when you talk, just look at biblical history, idolatry and all these things came into the mix. God tried to give us the blueprint. Here's what you need to do. Not only your commandments, your laws, these things that you ought to follow, but it wasn't black and white, right? It
Right.
was believers versus not. And then things happened to where all of a sudden, like you said, this became important for some reason. And, things just went the way that they went. But, I hate to I don't know if I'm right or wrong. I gave you my perspective on it.
Yes.
I would hope that, everybody hopes that unity is something that we can achieve, but I don't see any evidence of it ever happening before or it happening again until that's just my opinion on it.
And I think that's a great point and great opinion. And I will have to definitely agree with you on that, because even in the church, I think King said Sunday is one of the most segregated times
Yeah.
in this country,
Mm-hmm.
and it still is today. And I believe, in lieu of what's been happening for the last probably 20 years, I've seen the pulling
Mm-hmm.
apart of even Christians, whether they black, white, and I hate to put a label on it, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. So
Yeah, very, very. But okay, there we have it. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate you sharing your perspective. Again, y'all go get off forever now, man. Y'all go get
oh,
off forever.
Greg wasn't on Reverend out. It wasn't Greg. I'm the one who pointed out some of the stuff that it wasn't Greg.
Yeah, right on.
Reggie gonna have to take that round right there.
Yeah, you gonna have to
Man,
take
bro.
that. Take that
Yeah,
L, man, because Reverend Al, that's my man. But
yeah. And
all right.
I could say Farrakhan has definitely made me read more
Oh,
and study
absolutely.
more. So
Absolutely.
I will never. You could draw a lot from folks. No one's perfect, but you could always draw something from
Yeah, I
people. I
mean,
always
yeah, you know, one thing you can't argue with is the logic, right? He breaks things down and that sort of thing. I won't get into why I disagree. It's neither here nor there. But there's some things that he says that I disagree with, and there's certain things that, I mean, overall, from a religious perspective, that I don't agree with. But
yes.
But socially, I'm in lockstep. So
Yeah, he's been consistent.
mhm.
60 some years, 70 some years.
Hey man, you can't look. There's a lot of experience there. You can't knock that. So
Correct. Exactly.
All right, brother. I think we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Is there any other final thoughts that you want to share before we depart?
Just keep educating yourself. Keep reading. Keep reading. Keep reading.
Amen. Amen. I appreciate it. And as always, brother.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, as always, again, may God bless you. May God keep you.
Thank you.
And may God continue to be with you, brother.
You too.
I appreciate you, man.